Thank you very much, Chair. It is true, Mariam, the chairperson of the committee, we happen to have gone to law school at the same time. The commission, of course. And that side, I also see people who used to sit with me this side, and now I see them seated at the other side. So Simon here also, I've known him for years, even before he joined. To that extent, I don't know whether that's a conflict, but I have. I think I've disclosed it. And having said that, I would like to remind the Commission that you were a creature of the 1995 Constitution. Before that, you didn't have a Human Rights Commission. And the reason why you were created by the Constituent Assembly are not very difficult to come by. Let me remind you that the preamble to this Constitution that created you stated thus: recalling our history, which has been characterized by political and constitutional instability, recognizing the struggles against forces of tyranny, oppression, and exploitation, and 3, and I need to emphasize this, committed to building a better future by establishing a socio-economic and political order through a popular and durable national constitution, which created you, based on principles of unity, peace, equality, democracy, freedom, social justice, and progress. It goes on and on. As you execute your duties, I want all of you to remind yourself of this preamble, of the Constitution that created you. This, coupled with your mission, and you state yourselves, the vision of the Human Rights Commission is a society that observes human rights. We envisage a society where human rights are respected, promoted, and upheld, and thus ensuring justice, inclusivity, and accountability for all. Do you always have that in mind when you're executing your duties? Are you satisfied yourself that your performance as a commission answers to these targets which the Constitution set you to achieve? Do you think the people of Uganda you are serving, and I repeat, do you think the people of Uganda you are serving are happy with your performance? Mark yourselves. You see, it is not what you say or you tell us. It is what you do. I repeat this. It's not what you say, what you claim to be, but what you actually do. That is the most and critical issue. I don't know, Madam Chairperson. There was a lady, I was watching TV, she's your staff, who was in Kawempe. Is she in this room? The one you deployed who was in Kawempe. She was on TV. Is she in this room? When all of us were seeing brutalities on TV, she was on the very TV thing saying everything is moving smoothly. I almost froze, Madam Chairperson. You see, just then she would have said it. Everybody was like hiding in shame because of what was going on in Kawempe. And she was on TV saying, no, everything has moved on smoothly and so on. And by the way, what we observed as public in Kawempe was not all on the election day. It had been building up over some time. The people of Uganda expected at that time your voice. They did. They expected your voice. And you were quiet. You only came in at the end with some sort of statement. Actually, in English, we call it postmortem. Instead of like, when these things were happening, you should have moved in and talked to the stakeholders that is not what you expect the process to be. Honorable Simeo, you've been in this house, and my colleagues here, you've been here. My old girl, we were in law school, we were taught fairness. That's what we are taught. We are taught the law to observe the law. How do you go and justify and portray a rosy picture when things are not going well? That's when even those who will be talking about you in bad faith will be taken to be correct, because you don't make your case better. I leave that to you, and I don't want to patronize, but remind you that this is what we as a public, this is what we expect you to do. If you take that counsel in good faith, let me go to your document. Mr. Chairman, when you look at the performance, let us look at the first quarter of the financial year. You were allocated, it's on page 2. You allocated 20.5 billion. Yes? And of this 20.5 billion, the money which went to do the core function is 0.523%. So, to me, you did nothing. But you had the salaries, you had everything, the vehicles had fuel and so on. But the core functions, you had done less than 1%. For heaven's sake, if you are going to use less than 1% of the resources available to you to do your core mandate, can you meaningfully say you have done anything? I don't know whether this is economics, which is common sense. So, in November, you get the supplementary. But like our colleague has said, supplementary under the Public Finance and Management Act should always come in where the activities are not what? Foreseeable, and they are also unavoidable. Just look at how the money which you got, and this time you get 10.4 billion. Research and civic education, was it foreseeable? Inspection and monitoring government compliance and human rights standards, was this foreseeable? Complaints management, foreseeable? Retooling, salary enhancement, social security, none of this was not foreseeable. Actually, it was maybe an adjustment of their budget, but to attain to foreseeables. But even this foreseeable, Madam Chairperson, you get 10 billion. How much of this goes to your staff, the 10 billion? Salary enhancement, 2 billion. Yes? So that's already 20%. Social security contribution, 378. Contractual gratuity, 650. Maintenance of equipment, all this is really foreseeable. The only money which goes to the core mandate, I think, is contract complaints management, which is 517, which is, if you that is how much in terms of percentage? 5%? Because you have gotten 10.4 billion. And then the rest is inspection and monitoring compliance. Actually, inspection and monitoring compliance takes 910 million, which is 9%. And this one is if you are going to inspect, you are moving, allowances for staff and so on. Really, it goes towards, it's a little bit of core, but not core. Then you go to research and civic education. I think, Mr. Chairman, we need to know more about this research and civic education. Let's pay research. How you spent this money, we needed it in writing. Where's that? I don't know whether you're the accounting officer or you're the secretary. You are? That's yes. We want the breakup of this. Because to me, when we avail for you resources, I want the majority of those resources to go to the core function of the commission. But if you are spending less than 20% to the core functions, then we created this Human Rights Commission for purposes of jobs, where we employ our people, sometimes like in the first quarter where you didn't have even a single penny to do your work. You sat in the offices. Because just imagine, of the 20 billion, you spent only, the core function is it how much? Did you spend even 500 million? 105 million. To the core function, 105 million. My brother Honovo Basaliza Kano Omudumizi. When he was here, we had a nickname for him. We used to call him Omudumizi. But that one he wasn't a Kano then. Mudumizi as the Yame commander. So you can see that you not having enough resources to do your core function. And that makes you less potent, in my view. It makes you less competent. But for us to advocate for more resources, you must prove that you deserve them. I don't want to be advocating for more resources for purposes of people comfortable in the offices, when the performance, the observance of human rights is wanting in the country. Are we now proud that our country has moved a little bit, a step better in the observance of human rights? Or we are at the level we were before we created the Uganda Human Rights Commission? Do we have that research that we have moved and we are happy that the situation is certainly far, far better than it was before you people came into existence? And when I say you, I'm meaning the commission. Some of you could be new, but I'm looking at the performance of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Sometimes we had a lot of expectation during the constitutional making, and that's why we created this institution. And like I reminded you, it was because we are recalling our history. But today, this era, I don't know that I pronounce it in the song. The era, or I pronounce it in Chigisu. You can have on camera journalists being tortured publicly. Is this a situation which shows that we have moved on, or we are still sucked in the past, that this was an attempt in vain to create an institution to help us improve our human rights observance? Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't want to degenerate into patronizing or lecturing, but I think we need to do better as a commission. We certainly need to do better. And lastly, human rights funding should be for us as a country. Why do we go begging for money from these people to fund our human rights institutions? Do you think it's the correct thing to do? That a country with its sovereignty must go begging money from donors to say, give us some money to see whether we are performing well in human rights? Does that make common sense, really? I refuse, I reject an idea of begging for money for purposes of human rights observance. Who commits these human rights violations? It is us. Against who? Ourselves. Whom do you want to fund that one? Foreigners. It doesn't make common sense to me. We need now to move away from begging for this sort of funds to do this sort of thing. That's why I'm a little bit excited by Trump. President Trump, I think, he wakes us up. You must wake up and look for own money to sort out our own mess. Because some of this is man-made. I must say, Mr. Chairman, some of this human rights violation is man-made. It's not a disaster. It's just human-made by us, which we can stop. Who tells you to beat up journalists? And then you go and say, please, Americans, give us money to investigate how we've beaten up journalists. Ah, you guys, wake up, please. Give us money to go and investigate how we've locked up people without trial. Please help us with some money why we've remanded too many people in Rwanda, those who are not even on trial. By the way, Madam Chairperson, we have another problem. People who are on remand. We got a case the other day. I don't know whether you picked it up, which came on the floor. Somebody had been on remand for 20 years. 20 years on remand. And you just imagine that's the family of that person, or even us, how we are looking at the Human Rights Commission, seated comfortable asking for these billions, when somebody is just in Rwanda on remand for 20 years. No trial, on remand. On remand, 20 years. A kid who was born when he was first remanded is now 20 years. One was a 20-something. And I thought you people, you have picked up that, and these are the sort of cases we would expect you to be handling. They may not even need bigger resources. But if you sit in your office that you don't have money to do your core mandate. Yes, sir, please.
They would know, because there was a policy shift 3 or 4 years ago that once a violation is established, the compensation should come from the budget of the entity from where the violator comes from. May we know from the Commission whether that is being followed up, and probably know whether you're following up even their budgets, that once their money is deducted, they don't ask for a supplementary to replace the same money that has been deducted from them.
And that policy shift came from us here.
Sorry for the interjection. Actually, one of the things reported is that one of the challenges they are facing is that the MDAs, which are violating the rights, are not paying the victims. So the policy shift should also be addressed along the same.
Yeah, you see what used to happen? All this would go now to the Attorney General's chambers, Minister of Justice. And it would be a budget to the Minister of Justice. And we thought we need to know that the special accounting officers, if you are the ones committing these torts, or your department, your ministry, what we call MDG, should be able to pick the bills. If it's about Minister of Defense, let Minister of Defense pick the bill. If it's Internal Affairs, let Minister of Internal Affairs. Then it is possible to know which I don't know whether when you're making your orders, you're aware about that, and these MDGs are the ones who should be paying. And then you give us the statistics, those MDGs that have paid and those who have not paid, their victims. Then we can follow it up with those particular institutions and asking them why their staff are committing violations of human rights. We need more statistics on this because it helps us as a supervising committee to follow it up. Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senior Abdu Katuntu. But along the same lines, Honorable Abdu, we need also the names of the particular individuals of perpetrators in these MDAs, because violation of human rights is by individuals. And if we do not have the names, some of them continue in the same positions, continue to violate human rights, and then we are castigating the taxpayer to pay for those violations through the MDA budget. And to me, I find that a very serious challenge.
It is, maybe we need to advise the Commission. When you are making your orders now, we need you to indicate the individuals.
Yes.
Whom you found guilty to have committed violations of human rights. Because we must now follow it up. And we need also those statistics whenever you are coming, come with them. Because we need to go now to, you call it what and shame?
Naming and shame.
Name and shame. Because sometimes it helps, name and shame. So, if it may please you, Chair and colleagues, we now need names of people who the Commission has found guilty to have committed violations. So, don't just give us, so you know, we've handled this number, we've awarded this, now we need more meat on it. We now need more meat on it. And don't say soldiers did this. Go ahead and tell us which soldiers.
Yes.
Sergeant Katuntu, you put it there.
Kopolo Sechitoleko.
Koporo Mpuga.
Thank you, Honorable Abdu. Thank you, Honorable Abdu.
And private Sijan.
Thank you, Honorable Abdu. Now that takes us to the other very pertinent concern. Reports like we have had 260 cases. You know, violation of human rights is personal. It's in personam. We need these persons who have been victims and awarded and how much. We also need the perpetrators of these actions so that we have a list. Others may appear perennially. You see the first perpetrator here coming again and again and again. And then we need to question why is this particular person appearing several times on the same cause. So we need details. We need the figures. You mentioned that you found 35 prisons. You visited prisons and found so many people who are being detained, who have been on remand for a very long period of time. We need to know these names so that we follow up and know who has been detained for how long and why. Because when you talk about human rights, we are talking about human beings. We are talking about individuals. We need to know these individuals and find a solution because it's now a problem. So if 100 people are being detained in Arua, who are these 100? What are their details? What did they commit? And why have they been on remand for this very long period of time? That will help us to avoid the 20 years he's talking about because we know the individuals we are addressing. Now, to that, Madam Chair, my colleagues have spoken about the incidents of Kawempe and specifically the journalists who were brutalized. Do you think in the eyes of an ordinary journalist or an ordinary Ugandan, you are the first go-to place in case of human rights violation now? Do they have that confidence in you that if an incident has happened, you are the people they are going to first for redress? And that...
I don't know whether you are the first.
Yes, because we need, the whole intention, like it has been enunciated from the beginning, that you should be the first people to go to in cases of human rights violations. So we need that. You need you to build that confidence. Let me invite Honorable Zijan to make, lastly, to make the submissions.
Can I, Chair, with your permission and with the sympathy of Honorable Zijan, make just one statement. Madam Chairperson, we look at the Commission as our first line of defense.
Oh, you ought to.
Yes, you ought to. Once it is broken, we are in trouble. That's why we are trying to be hard on you. You are supposed to be our critical line of defense. And once you are weak, like it seems, then we are in trouble. So please, the Constitution has placed faith in the Commission. And don't fail us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm a member of the committee. Honorable Chair, I would like to draw the Commission's places of detention inspected. And I see that for the military detentions, the Commission chose Gulu of all places in the country. My question is, what informed your choice of Gulu of all places? And
Mr. Chairman, you see, when you come late, you run a risk of regurgitating. The issue being raised by Honorable Zijan has been raised by Honorable Jonathan Oduru. Mr. Chairman, is it in order for a member who has come late to raise an issue that has already been raised? Is he in order?
you see,
Mr. Honorable Salirwa, the Honorable Zijan will raise other issues that have not been raised before going forward.
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And for Basalira's information, I have not even raised the issue. So he really doesn't even know what I am going to raise. What was the Commission's finding resulting from this visit? And is your finding, in your opinion, a sufficient representation of the state of affairs touching human rights in as far as the military is concerned? Number two, I will invite you to page 29 and table 19.2, where you seek to spend 2 billion shillings for purposes among which is training of the media in human rights and conflict-sensitive reporting. Now, from the public's observation, Madam Chairperson, the media, all members of the media, have been victims, if we are to draw examples from the likes of Kawempe. We have seen the media being brutalized by institutions of government, for example, JAT. And as a strategy to address some of those things, you seek to educate the media on how to report sensitively. But isn't that ironic, Honorable Chair, that you seek to educate the victim on how to report concerning human rights violations when they are being violated, when their rights are being violated themselves? Isn't that strategy upside down? Do you also, in the same spirit, seek to train the violators? Do you have a strategy of training JAT, for example, on how to handle the media with the spirit of human rights in these situations? Or you feel that, it's my feeling that you are going to train the victim because you really can't face the perpetrators themselves. Is there a strategy, and if there is, of training JAT, kindly guide me to that in the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zijan. Finally, Madam Chairperson, you spoke about, you highlighted how you have engaged on radio, especially with the region offices. But I see a persistent trend in your report where for example, if you're dealing with Karamoja, the engagement is in Moroto, mainly, and not the other districts. If you're dealing with Busoga, the engagements are in Jinja and not other districts. And I've seen the same with most of the northern areas. You engage only in the main regional towns where you have regional offices. I see that as denying other people in those far areas opportunity to receive the services of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Secondly, there is need to continuously engage the courts of judicature, especially on matters relating to bail. One of the biggest violators of the right to bail now are courts of law, either by, I don't know whether deliberate denial or intentional refusal for bail. And this is a human right. So we invite you to continuously engage courts. I have not seen too much engagement on this with the courts, especially on the right to bail and other rights, because things like long detentions sometimes emanate from these courts, and we need to address them. And then lastly, the January ruling of the Supreme Court in the case of Kabaziguruka created serious human rights issues. Have you specifically paid attention to the human rights issues that were raised in that ruling, and how are you addressing them? We have people who were erroneously detained, and they continue to be detained, and we have not had a clear position of the Uganda Human Rights Commission on this matter. On that note, honorable colleagues, do we have any very, very important issue that must be raised before we get the responses? Because once we get the responses, we need to give them time without continuous interruptions. Thank you very much for your input. Madam Chairperson and the Commission, I invite you to respond to those issues which have been raised.
Has been procured or not, but we need to know how much the advisor, how much is going to be paid, and etc. So that we see whether, yes, the 1.2 is appropriate or not.
Honorable Chair will provide the information. Yes, please allow us. So, and Chair, on complaints management, monitoring and inspections and DRED, you've ruled on that, but I would like to add that it's also funded by Access to Justice. So we expect about 300 million shillings from Access to Justice. So then it will be added to this, and it will put it up to about 600 million shillings. And it's a government of Uganda, and sometimes they get a portion from development partners. But we are aware that with the withdrawal of donors, it's government of Uganda still funding Access to Justice, formerly jailers. Yes. So, Chair, there was something about selective audits. It appears selective, but we follow through, because there are times we don't have adequate resources in a particular quarter to go for all the 12 regional offices and then the 9 regional offices. So normally we do per quarter what the available funds can accommodate. Chair, I think that's what I wanted to comment on the budget. Thank you very much.
The directorate I head is called Research, Education and Documentation. My name is Kamadi Bionabie, Director, Research, Education and Documentation. Now, some of the comments raised, it would appear when money is seen beside this research and education, a conclusion was made that it is for research, which is not true. It is for Directorate of Research, Education and Documentation. Unfortunately, The details are not captured in that table. In fact, in the next financial year, for which funds we are seeking for here, we don't have a single research. It should be on record. So I thought that should be clarified. The details are dialogues for security agencies. It was also raised here in the paragraph. There was cultural leaders, political parties, and others. But we target security agencies, police, intelligence, UPDF, prisons. Those are the details. Community engagements with the local people.
Okay, excuse me. Now that you consider the details are not captured in the table, how do you expect us to approve or justify that without us knowing the details?
Honorable Chair, the 33-page document delivered by the chairperson is a summary of the annual work plan. All these details are there. Yes, that is the point. Yeah.
No, let's sort out one issue. Don't run away. You see, if you want, we are in a budget process. This could be the name of the department. But what we want is the details on where you're going to spend the money on. And that's what you should be reading to us. Go get the very document and take us through.
Honorable Chair, I'm responding to what was raised in the chairperson's submission. The commission planner here has a detailed work plan, and I'm very sure of what I'm saying, Honorable Chair. What the chairperson presented is a summary. In fact, we don't have a single research proposed for next financial year.
First, understand it from this perspective. No one is doubting what you're saying. What we are asking for are the details.
Dialogue on peaceful elections conducted. 6 review meetings with local governments on mainstreaming human rights-based approach in economic development programs conducted in selected UHRC regional offices. Then 37 radio talk shows conducted, and 2,200 sport tools and periodicals acquired and disseminated. Bill of Rights developed and designed in Luganda, Lusoga, Runyakore, Ruchiga, and Rutoro, Runyoro, and 1,900 copies printed. Annual subscription to the consortium of university libraries, and then annual subscription to the UPPC paid, annual subscription to online law library paid. Chair, this total 770 million, but we can provide the breakdown for each of those items, Chair, if you can allow us.
What are you saying?
You see, and this is come with their documents at the last minute. They imagine we don't have time to consult. And that's why I have beef with the gentleman, the director.
And I am sorry I called him a mercenary. He's a director, not a mercenary.
Big man.
I'm sorry about that.
Because even these ones are not costed. There is no figure to any of these. Instead, we are just looking at the total.
Of 770.
Yes. So how do you expect us to say, yes, you have been reasonable? All these activities you've been reading, none of them you have costed. So why have you brought it to us?
But Madam
This is
Chair,
budget.
that is the whole spirit of the ministerial policy statements, to dissect and have an opportunity to look at the figures and attach them to the functions of the entity and the activities planned.
We're going to do things differently, please.
Honorable Chair, we had touched on that matter. See, when we informed them of budget, that now the whole Uganda Human Rights Commission has gone to a primary school. Now we are establishing a what? Human Rights and Peace Club. As if the primary schools are the ones violating, abusing the rights. That's what they are telling us.
So where do you want them to be?
No, I actually commented here that I think when we retreat, most of the expenditures here do not meet the test of appropriation. For me, that's what I identified here. If you examine them one by one, and I just gave that example amongst the many. I told you about the portrait.
The portraits, 40.
How the portrait now is going to help the whole country. Buying a new portrait is going to help the whole country about human rights relations. So there are quite a number of them when you look through, which had invited their attention through.
But Jonathan, there are no figures. About figures.
Honorable Chair.
Yeah, a budget is about figures.
How the PPS presents it, we will get it. Presents as it's prescribed in the Act. So this is how the system presents it. But I request that we make it outside the system, the PPS, and present it the way it's easy to understand by the members here. But this is
Chair.
the system generated, Chair.
Chair, you see, all these figures, we can read them. The only reason why we invite an entity here is that when I ask you particular detail on a matter, you must have it at your fingertips. That's the only reason why we call you here. We have looked at all this, but I want you, as and when I ask you, how much have you put here, you must be able to tell us. So if you come here, following up your document and say, we don't have it, then this meeting is as good as that.
Let's give the chairperson.
And we concede, we are going to provide written details and bring them. We don't know how much time you will give us, but as soon as possible.
No, Madam Chair and your commissioners, these budgets are prepared and submitted to you, the commission, for approval. Isn't it? Isn't it, team? They will sit. Yeah, because the commissioners are here and Honorable Simeo is here. We can ask him how much did you approve to spend on a particular peace club at a primary school. You should be able to tell us.
Now, honorable colleagues, in the interest of time, let's give the, can we say Thursday? Because we are concluding the hearings on Wednesday. And so we should have it by closure of business Thursday for consideration. No, by closure of business Wednesday, so that we have it in our in-house meeting on Thursday. Are there other issues you want to respond to, or you want to put them in writing? Because you seem to be...
Chair will put them in writing.
Okay. Then let's give Honorable Simeo a chance to say hello.
Raised a question as to whether we've ever done any investigations on our own without a complaint, as provided by the Constitution. There are several, but let me give just a few examples. One, Honorable Chair and members, when we learned from the media that Dr. Besigye had disappeared in Kenya, we did not receive any complaint from his family before we started the investigation, together with our counterparts, the National Human Rights Institution in Kenya. But as their investigation was underway, we saw on TV that he was appearing before the court martial. There are just so many. We began an investigation into the issue where we saw an online video of it in a drainage in Mbarara by police officers. But by coincidence, as our investigation was underway, we learned that the IGP had swung into action and the culprits were already facing trial. We lodged an investigation into torture of students in, this was particularly in southwestern Uganda, in Ntungamo in particular. And again, police had already swung into action, and several others. And so we are executing that role. On the awards, Honorable Basali was said, the awards we give to victims of human rights violations are meager, to use his word. These awards are determined by factors. There are factors which determine quantum of damages, and we follow them. One of them, of course, is the gravity. If it is torture, the gravity of the torture, the impact. Sometimes the impact may be long-term, sometimes it may be short-term. I'm aware that protection from torture is an absolute right under Article 44 of the Constitution. But let me be honest that sometimes the other factor is the character of the victim. There are victims who are convicted defilers, and this is very common, especially in West Nile. You go to do a session, tribunal session in Arua, and you find about 2/3 of the victims of torture are convicted defilers. So when you are, and they were tortured, yes. when you are assessing damages to be awarded to this victim who defiled his niece, and they are here before you bragging how they defiled their nieces and they slaughtered a ram, and that in our culture, once you, and these girls are as young as 7 years old. So the truth is some of them are tortured during interrogation, but when I'm looking at such a case, there is no way I can award this man who defiled his niece and is almost proud of what he did. And I know that this niece of his has suffered long-term trauma, both mental and physical, and that I ignore that fact. So those are some of the factors. If this victim of torture is also a convicted defiler, I have to take that into consideration. I concede or I confess I have to award them much less than what I would award an innocent victim of torture who is not convicted of any crime. So those are some of the factors we follow. I sound a bit emotional because I'm a woman who was once a girl, and I know the trauma victims of defilement can suffer forever. They may heal physically, but not psychologically. In West Nile, uncles defile their nieces, and they don't care. I'm not saying this doesn't happen in other regions, but it is worse in West Nile. Sorry, I wanted to know the difference between partially investigated cases and conclusively investigated. I thought this was very clear. Partially are those which are still undergoing investigation. Those concluded are those ready for hearing. And then the Kawempe North.
No, that question came in time where you mentioned that you don't have backlog. You have no backlog, they are all being disposed of, but you have partially investigated cases. So you wanted a distinction.
Was informed by the fact that 1,100 cases before the tribunal is very little, considering that we now have at least 3 sessions every month, and that at every session we dispose of about 6 of them. So what I meant was that this is manageable and it should not worry this committee. So we are moving well, honorable members. That's what I meant. Maybe I exaggerated. You know, when you are judging yourself, sometimes you may award yourself higher marks than you deserve, but all right. Places of detention, whether there is improvement, any tangible outcome. Let me request Director Sechindi, who is the director in charge of this, to say something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try to be brief. The honorable members raised issues around places of detention. They were particularly concerned about our findings in places of detention. Honorable members, places of detention are many. We have military detention places, police, prisons, remand homes, and the military, because I think they're the ones that took the bulk of the day. In Uganda, we have 256 and 65 prisons. And in these prisons, currently, we have over 80,000 inmates. If you go to Luzira, if you go to Chitalia, you will find them sleeping neck to neck. It is so bad, honorable members, that if you go there, which we often do regularly and unannounced, they're in a dire condition. The question has been, do we build more prisons, or we change the criminal justice system? Do we concentrate on community service? But we have raised this time and over again. And I'm glad the members have picked up on this. When you ask some of the findings, of course, prisons has made tremendous efforts to keep them clean, to make sure there are no breakdown of diseases, breakup of diseases, and to make sure there is discipline and security. But the issue of overcrowding and congestion is so dire in prisons. This we have to handle as a country. There were concerns of why we went to Gulu and not the military facilities in and around Kampala. Now, sometimes you hear of an incident and you decide to go to that place. That is why we went to Gulu to see whether there were civilians there, and unfortunately the people we found were military men in uniform being detained there, and the conditions were not bad. But like you have raised, we shall also try and again visit. Now we are reporting on a particular financial year. Previously we have gone to military, but we can't go there over and over again. So we shall go back to the ones in and around Kampala as requested. So we pledge to handle that. The nature of crimes, as I don't know which honorable raised that. In our prisons we have many crimes, murder, manslaughter, you know, the whole 9 yards. But I think that the ones that top the list are theft, assault, burglary, defilement, and but unfortunately most of the ones who are dealing with defilement, when you ask them, they tell you it is land matters or land disputes. But prisons have said, okay, this is what we are dealing with. So there is house breaking, defilement, there is murder is not so high, but theft, burglary, assault, those are the highest criminal offenses that we have. The category that we have, and I think it's very important that we recognize this, majority of these are uneducated, semi-educated, between the ages of 19 and 36, 37. So you realize that these are prime ages where people are supposed to be very productive. So that calls for employment. We also note that majority are coming from humble beginnings, and many of them cannot access lawyers. So those are challenges that we note. The other issue that we had was, do we catalog the detainees that we find in particular? Now, I have said that we have 80,000 prisoners. Those are so many people. Those are it's a full country, almost a full country of Mongolia that has 1 million people. If we have 80,000 people in places of detention. Now, we catalog the ones, for example, those that have been pending ministerial orders. I think Honorable Katuntu mentioned someone who was detained for 27 years. Those are the names that we submitted to the Chief Justice, and we also submitted them to the Minister of Justice. And some of them, because of our communication, the chair's letter to the Minister of Justice, it led to the release of 130 inmates who were pending ministerial orders. These people had been waiting for justice for the longest time. And
Wempe twafulumya alipoota ku kulonda okujjuza ekifo ky'omubaka omugenzi Segirinya. Twafulumya alipoota yaffe, twavumirira obuvuyo obwali mu kulonda, okutulugunya abantu, okukuba bannamawulire. Ate nsuubira nti mwe nga bannamawulire mukimanyi bulungi nti abo bannamawulire bannammwe abaakubibwa baleeta okwemulugunya mu ofiisi yaffe. Okunoonyereza kugenda mu maaso, ogwo omusango gujja kuwulirwa. Tujja kuwulira tulabe bujulizi ki obuliwo. Bwe tunaamatizibwa nti baatulugunyizibwa bajja kuliyirirwa.
Kufujjo lyonna eryalabikira e Kawempe, Munnayuganda teyeeraliikirira ku kalulu akajja, nga commission mulinawo programu ey'enjala okulaba nti tebiddamu kuvaawo.
Kaakati akakiiko k'ebyokulonda ke kavunaanyizibwa ku kulonda, nsuubira nti ke kagenda otukakasa nti okulonda mu mwaka ogujja kujja kuba kwa mazima nga kugoberera amateeka. Naye ffe ng'abakakiiko k'eddembe ly'obuntu era nga Bannayuganda tuwa obweyamu nti okulonda okwo kujja kuba kwa mirembe. Ffe tujja kukola omulimu gwaffe okugezaako okutangira obumenyi bw'amateeka nga tukolaganira wamu n'ebitongole ebikuuma ddembe, kubanga tetuukiriza nti ebitongole bye bitulugunya abantu oba bye bimenya amateeka, naye abantu mu ebyo ebitongole be bamenya amateeka. Y'ensonga lwaki tugenda kubavunaana abo abeemulugunyibwako bannamawulire, tugenda kubavunaana. So ffe nga Human Rights Commission tuwa obweyamu nti okulonda kujja kuba kwa mirembe, era tukubiriza Bannayuganda bonna okwetanira akalulu ako abatanaba kufuna ze national identity card mugezeeko okulaba nti okulonda okwo tukwetanira aidha nga abalonzi oba nga bakandidate.
Bannayuganda babasuubira mu kinene nnyo ng'akakiiko naye ate okusinziira ku byemukola abasinga obungi bagamba tebimatiza mugamba oluusi ssente ze babawaza entono ya mulowooza singa kiki ekibulamu okulaba nti muweereza oba bannayuganda bafune ekyo kye babasuubiramu ng'akakiiko ku ddembe lyabwe ly'obuntu?
Nze ngamba nti bannayuganda abasinga batumatira emirimu gyaffe gye tukola muze mulaba nga tutuuza kooti zaffe ez'eddembe ly'obuntu mu bitundu ebitali bimu nga tusala emisango ne tulagira abaatulugunyizibwa oba be baasiba mu bukyamu baliyirirwe. Wiiki eri twali Mbarara, eddako tugenda Fort Portal, nawadde ekyokulabirako bwe twali erira twasala omusango omukyala bwe baatira mutabani we mu kkomera twalagira gavumenti emusasule obukadde 65 n'oyo eyamutta ne tulagira avunaanibwe mu kooti. So nze ngamba nti byebyo ebyokulabirako ebiraga nti ddala tulina amannyo ate tuluma. So
General election 4.8 billion zoyogeddeko ze mwetaaga civic education n'enteekateeka n'okukanti
ekya figures sisobola kyogerako.
General election ensimbi ze mwetaaga okweteekateeka n'okumpasating abantu.
Ekyo saakyogedde naye nsaba mubuuze avunaanyizibwa ku by'ensimbi n'okutambuza emirimu accounting officer waffe.
Akasembayo ku lwange ekigambo political prisoners abakwatibwa olw'ebyobufuzi mwenga commission mugamba temubalina era temubamanyi kijja kityokuba temubamanyi
osanga gye bali naye kati ffe tutambulira ku records. Bwe ngenda mu komera ejinja oba eruzira wano nensaba bajjeyo records zaabwe admission book gye bayingirizaako abasibe nga bakatuuka nga bava mu kooti ez'enjawulo. Ffe emisango gye tusoma mu admission book tetulabangamu political prisoner. Tulabamu emisango oluusi terrorism obutujju, oluusi mada, obutemu, oluusi okukabasanya obwana obuto, obuliisamaanyi. Tetulabangako musango gwe bayita political prisoner oba. So nze sisobola kwogera ku kyesimanyi. Political prisoner oba yafaanana atya? Kuba nze ndi munnamateeka mmanyi nti ffe tutunuulira misango ki egibasomeddwa. So sisobola kujwetekawo kyesimanyi nti gundi oyo wadde bamusomera omusango gw'obutemu oba ogw'obutuuju naye political prisoner ekyo ffe tetukimanyi.
Chairperson, oli interested mu bantu abaasibwa mu kalulu kali paka kati bakyali mu kkomera kino okitaddeko konnyesiranga mu Human Rights Commission
abaasibwa mu kalulu
nga tugenda mu kalulu ka generations 216 kati generations eyagwa kati tugenda mu generations naye wakyali abasiba abaasibwa mu
amanya gaabwe gandeetere tulabe tugende mu records tulabe baabasibira misango ki. Sirowooza nti okwesimbawo mu kalulu oba okunoonyeza candidate w'obuwagizi ogwo si musango. So bwe babaawo bonna be baasiba olw'okunoonyeza bakandidate baabwe obuwagizi oba okukuba akalulu amanya gaabwe gandeetere.
Era pozina okwongereza ku ekyo
Mbo Central ate kibabo by'omutwe
izo kiyita Kampala.
Tujja kukyusa erinnya tugiyite ekintu ekirala oba naguru kuba eri naguru kuba ekyo ekigambo kyajja kankiyite administrative language administrative units. Ffe tetuli bana byabufuzi ate tetuvoola ggwanga lyonna.
Aludde kwa limanda bwe bayisa budget eno tugenda kubalondoola n'okwogerezeganya n'ekitongole ekiramuzi. Omanyi ekitongole ekiramuzi kyetengeredde tekiweebwa mateeka tewali akiragira. Neffe ng'akakiiko tulina naffe ssemateeka kituterekako okugenda mu makomera ne tugalambula. Ekimu kye tuzuddeyo ntwalo bangi abaludde kwa limanda. Tugenda kutegeeza abakulu bano nti bannanga abantu bano abaludde kwa limanda oba baasibwa byabufuzi kubanga ng'omukulu oli babuziza mu mateeka tewali nti political prisoner. Naye omuntu ono waba yakwatibwa ng'aluddeyo tusaba awozesebwe oba yeyimirwe nga koti bwekola ki bwegamba. Akantu akalala kogeddwa nnyo onalebo mpuuga n'onalebo sekitoleko akamaapu. Ffe ng'akakiiko k'eddembe ly'obuntu wano mu Central Region oba Buganda tulinawo ofiisi bbiri. Tulina ya Central wano mu Kampala neye Masaka ne mu region ki endala. So tebakitwala nti kubanga waliwo abantu waliwo konsani y'abantu. Ti maapu ya Uganda yafulumye ekigambo Buganda tekikola ki tekiriiko. Ffe ng'akakiiko ofiisi zaffe zibaddewo era zikyaliwo. Neera mu butuufu bwakyo bwe banga ensobi yakoleddwa kubanga yensobi ekola ki ekolebwa banga abakugu bakoze ensobi eyo kiwa kyamulamwa maapu eyo ne bagizaayo ne bagikomyawo obutongo ekigambo Buganda kikola ki kwekiri kubanga kyali kibaddeko era kibaddeko. Ezo region ffenna tuzimanyi bulungi regions 12 ti Buganda, Busoga, Bukeddi, Teso, Kalamoja, Acholi, Lango, West Nile, Bunyoro, Tolo, Kigezi, Ankole. Ezo region zimanyiddwa era zino okwapiaringa mu map. Kwewanga twali buzibu bonna. Toze kitegerekese bulungi.
Naye office ya